So I feel like the whole when they like SolForge going to digital to Steam is a good starter, like a way to get into it. That and then video games that become board games. So I'm trying to like start with stuff like that, like the crossover. I guess I thought at first I didn't really look at who I was talking to. I thought it was going to be someone who was just responsible for the digital, like implementing the game into digital or something. But then I was like, oh, I know this name, and it's because you made Ascension, which was like
Correct.
the first game that introduced me more to like deck building games, and it's because of that that I tried like my friend. I have a bunch of like board game friends that we get together and play games, and when my friend taught me Ascension, I think that's why I started looking for more games like that. And recently we played Clank, which is more like deck building plus an actual like a board game there's like a board that you have to move through
Yeah.
or world.
Yeah, if you like that, I recommend you check out Ascension Tactics. It takes the same Ascension deck building game, but you
Hmm.
applies it to a tactical miniatures game with different scenarios and even a campaign mode you can go through. It's like takes that same heart and gives you the tabletop feel.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna ask you about the Ascension, I guess the different iterations, because I only played the original, but I was gonna ask if they're more like skin versions of the same game or some of them
Oh
add
yeah.
more
Oh
to it
yeah.
too.
Yeah, we have the so Ascension itself has had 15 different standalone expansions in addition to
Mm.
the base game. Each one can be mixed and matched with the any other. We also have a new one that's coming out. We're doing a crowd fund on GameFound called Ascension Legends, which you
Mhm.
can follow now, which will be launching this summer. And that's all a part of the core Ascension line, along with a bunch of cool promos and little mini expansion packs. That's been going on now for 14 years. That game has been out, so
Mm.
it's
Wow.
pretty crazy. So 16 expansions in 14 years, and then Ascension Tactics was is kind of its own its own line, so it doesn't necessarily mix and match with the rest of Ascension, but it creates the whole tactical miniatures game part. So for those that are familiar with Ascension, instead of using power, it's the same deck building. You start with the same deck of cards, use runes to get cards from the center row, but instead of using power to kill monsters, you use power to command your champion. So the more powerful champions take more power to command. You move them around a hex grid, try to control territory and get the victory points that way. But then there's different scenarios that like kind of capture the flag, 3 player, 4 player co-op, free for alls, campaign, all kinds of like it's the most gameplay I've ever packed into
Yeah.
one box. It's really, really fun. And then we did Ascension Tactics Inferno. We did a Kickstarter for last year, which is the expansion to Ascension Tactics, which also stands alone and mixes and matches. And that one will be coming out in the fall.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna check those out. Definitely. Um,
And Ascension, obviously, if you haven't already played the app, of course, the main Ascension game,
yeah, I
and I
saw
think
there was an
14
app.
of the expansions are all on the app. So there's on iPhone, Android, on Steam, as well as there's a VR version even. So it's
Wow.
been quite the multi-platform game, which I
Yeah.
never expected when I first launched it. It was honestly like my first project of my own, and I'd always joked that I kind of put all my life savings into it, and I thought that I would have to build my house out of Ascension boxes if it didn't work, but fortunately it did.
Yeah. Was the first original one like a Kickstarter crowdfund thing, or just like you made this game and it kind of blew up?
I just made the game and drove. This is before
Yeah,
Kickstarter
before all
crowdfund
that
was a
started,
thing.
because it's
There
been
was not really like this
15
was,
years or
back in
something.
2010, 20 yeah. So I was already I had already worked on the game for the year prior to that. So, 2009 or so I started working on it and just launched it in old school style, hope for the best, went to conventions, showed it off, got some enthusiasm and you know got there. Then the fact that I made Ascension is what led to SolForge Fusion, in fact. So
Hmm.
that very next year, so we're 2011, I'm at PAX Dev conference, so just a developer conference there, and Richard Garfield is giving a talk. And Richard's basically, he's a creator of Magic the Gathering.
Yeah,
He's my career started because of Magic, right? I
because
started off as a pro player and played my way through college by playing, and so he changed the course of my life. And so of course I went to go hear him talk. He gets to talk about game design, which is awesome and very insightful, of course. And then at the end there's a Q&A and somebody asks him, "Hey, what's your favorite game right now?" And he says Ascension. And I like literally like I'm in the crowd, I go jump up like a kid, like and everybody laughs. But it gave me it gave me an opportunity to talk to him afterwards, and we just started chatting, and we talked for like 2.5 hours. I mean, we were like
uh,
so in sync about what our next project was going to be and what we wanted to work on, and that project became SolForge, the original version of SolForge, which was a pure digital trading card game. We ended up releasing back in 2012, and ran for several years and had a lot of fun. This concept that we introduced that the cards level up as you play came
Hmm.
from original SolForge. So instead of mana systems and having to worry about all kinds of different resources, you just play any cards you want out of your hand, and every time you play a card, it levels up. Every 3 turns, you shuffle your deck and get to draw your new hand of cards and get more powerful cards. And so the cards are all balanced via leveling, and you get to tell cool stories like a dragon turning from a little dragon egg into a baby whelp into a giant fire-breathing monster. And it created a really fun uh, play pattern that we ran for many years. Eventually, we had to sunset that game, and we always wanted to find a way to bring it back. So fast forward now, we're in what's it,
Four.
2017,
Oh.
2018, that we got. Well, now I know we're in
Yeah.
2024, but it was actually this is a
Yeah,
long road to make
when
this
it
game. I
started.
mean, years and years of work. Um, and I saw, Richard had worked on another game called Keyforge
Yeah,
where he
we
used
played a lot of
algorithmic
that.
card generation. Okay, great. Yeah. So the
Mhm.
idea that you can algorithmically generate decks of cards that are unique was fascinating to me. But there were several things, so I called him up again. We started chatting for hours about it, and I broke down all the parts of Keyforge. And there were several things about it I didn't like, which or I felt could be improved on, which
Mhm.
was that the game was not customizable at all. Right, you're just
Yeah.
stuck with whatever deck you have. That the deck was not like the cards weren't algorithmically generated. Really, they were just mixed and matched algorithmically. And so I thought, well, okay, we could do better. And so what if we took the original SolForge game, the cool idea of cards leveling up and evolving, and then added this algorithmic generation? And oh, well, why not throw in make it a full hybrid game and make it something that could really become a digital game where you could one-to-one correlation all of your cards. And that is kind of the origin story of SolForge Fusion. And so we created this, revolutionary system where the only game where you can really have like an entire deck of cards, it's one of a kind, unique to you, with a QR code. You could scan into your online account and play immediately online.
Yeah,
And I
that's
mean,
super
literally, as
cool.
we're recording this, I launched the Steam early access version 39 minutes before we started recording this. So it is
Yeah, it was
just
today.
brand spanking new. And so for those that are not into the tabletop side, of course, you can just play it purely digitally. You can earn free decks just by playing. Everybody gets kind of basic starter decks, and you can unlock decks that are unique to you. So
Mhm.
it's designed to be totally accessible if you want to play it as a purely tabletop player, totally accessible if you want to play it as a purely digital player. But if you want to play both, your collection crosses over, and so you don't have to rebuy things. You get to like evolve your decks over time. We also introduced a whole roguelike campaign mode, so you could take your custom decks into the campaign, algorithmically generated campaign, earn power-ups, battle bosses, evolve your deck, gain XP, all the fun things that like games like Slay the Spire are known for, but the
Mhm.
ability to actually take a custom collectible deck into the battle, which nobody's done before either.
Yeah, that's super cool. But I bought the a starter kit like a while back, and I
Yeah,
guess I didn't know until I opened it that they're all different, which is cool because I could
yeah.
buy one, my friend could buy one, and we could mix and match and have like combine all the things. But I thought I finally played the digital version the other night, and then I actually got like a taste for the game, kind of learn how it works, and I love the it is like a deck builder because you're slowly getting rid of your level one cards, adding level two, and then they come into your hand, and level three, like you start leveling up your cards instead of just changing your deck.
Yeah, that's right.
And then no, it wasn't like I guess the cool thing was so I have a friend that has been wanting to play Magic with me, but he lives in Minnesota. Like when he was here, we used to play a lot. Then he moved and he bought
Right.
two what are the card like the dual decks of Lord of the Rings, and he's like, oh, they came with a code that I can upload them, and I think it had two codes, so I could upload them, he could, and we could use them in the game. But I was like, oh, that'd be cool if you could have your whole collection. But that's awesome that you can like just buy the starter kit, put in the digital version. Your friend could buy one, and then you could play like across the country or
Yeah, across the world, even.
yeah.
Yeah, it's something that's it's very exciting. Look, I love tabletop gaming, right? I grew up with tabletop games. I'm sitting around the table with my family playing Monopoly or having epic games of Talisman with my friends, or even Dungeons and Dragons, Magic, of course. And I love that experience. But the reality is, like, we don't all have time for that. We don't have
It's
the
hard.
ability to get together with friends. That's very hard. And so we it's like, okay, how do I bring the best of the tabletop gaming world and keep that, and then bring the best of what digital gaming can offer, and really merge those two worlds? And what is why we call it a hybrid deck game. I mean, we really have like worked very, very hard to try to give everybody that experience in the core of it. Like if I'm hanging out with friends, I can play an awesome tabletop game. We have tournaments at conventions. You can, but then if I want to just grab a quick game for 5 minutes, I can jump online and play, or I can, if I don't have time to be online with other people, I can play a campaign as long as I want, leave it, come back to it whenever I want. And then we get to experience things that were just not even technologically possible 5 or 10 years ago, right? We couldn't make things like this. We couldn't do this kind of digital printing, and this, scanning back and forth and having all this stuff. So we're really trying to be on the forefront of technology, but just bring the heart of just good games, right? Good games don't change, but what is possible to bring to people, a technology unlocks a lot of things, which we're always very excited about.
Yeah. And I think it's also like the digital versions of board games are a good way to like learn how the game works before you play with friends. Like especially like I have a friend that if we're gonna play a new game the night before, he'll set it up for like 4 people and just play through it to learn. But even just like I played SolForge online first, then I brought out the cards just to set it up and try it out like by myself the other night too. And I was like, well, now I
Mhm.
understand what I'm doing because of the other night. And then I learned even like new stuff because there's like the shuffling of the new cards into the deck kind of goes on behind the scenes in the digital version. But then I was like, oh, that's what's happening. That's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's great. It's great to be able to, I mean, teaching people new games and building communities for new games are some of the hardest things as a designer, to be able to get people involved and get people invested. And so the app, and we have a totally free to play version demo of the app you can play just to get a feel for it. If you do buy the full app in early access, we give you a bunch of free cool decks, things you could unlock. We've got a bunch more goodies and features that are on the way, right? Early access. I'm a very big believer in just having a direct connection with your players and your
Hmm.
community, right? We built this game through crowd funds, and we have been, we had over 1,300 or so people that were playing the beta even before this early access release. We're excited to expand that community even more, and to be able to get feedback. We just did a post even in the Steam forums about here's features we want to build. Like, let us know what you think, which ones people are prioritizing. We're going to keep a close eye on what the analytics tell us about what players really enjoy. Do they want to play more PvP matches and tournaments? Do they want to play more, have more content for the PvE campaign and the all of the different aspects there? It's a fun process to kind of co-create, with our players. So I'm excited
Yeah.
about it.
So was the digital version always planned like throughout the Kickstarter? Was it a goal with the Kickstarter? Like if we raise enough money, or was it like, no, we're gonna
I
do
mean,
it,
listen,
go
it's
all in?
very, very,
Hmm.
yeah, it's very, very expensive to build a digital game. Was always the plan from
Hmm.
the beginning, but we needed to have success in order to do that. Unfortunately, we did, right? I mean, we had, not only did we have a successful Kickstarter launch, but we ended up, launching the game worldwide back in October of 2022 for the physical game. We had over 1 million decks that we've sold. Lots of players all around the world. So that was what gave us the confidence to say, okay, it's worth investing quite a bit to get this digital app to get off the ground and have everything realize the full vision of what SolForge Fusion was meant to be.
Hmm. Then what's, I guess, is your role in the digital and physical version is kind of the same as like the creative or game designer in both spaces.
My role is complicated. So I'm the CEO of Stoneblade Entertainment. So whatever, the buck stops here at the end of the
Hmm.
day. I co-created the design part with Richard Garfield. I also have a team of very talented designers that work on the project. Right, these kinds of games are massive efforts. So a lot of very talented people that create the game and the rules and the cards and the individual functions. Right, so that's all of a team effort. But then there's managing, the engineering team and what are our priorities and how do you manage that, marketing, and obviously talking to you and other
Yeah.
people like that,
Mhm.
getting the word out there, helping to organize. We had a great presence at PAX East and demoed the game there a few weeks ago. We're going to be at Gen Con this summer and showing off the game and giving away cool goodies. We have a new release of the game that we're coordinating, for the, we do expansions just like, traditional card games. So we had our first set came out in 2022. We did another set last year called, the uh, Battle for White Fang Pass, and our new
Mhm.
set with brand new cards, all kinds of cool stuff, is coming out in May, on the 23rd. Yes, the 23rd. And that is with all new cards, bunch of cool new stuff. And so that's going to be available in the app as well as, in retail stores. And so like lots of parts that all have to kind of get managed. It takes we're a small team, maybe a dozen people. So it's not, everybody has to wear a lot of hats. My favorite part is designing the game and getting to share it with fans and get to interact with fans. So
Mhm.
those are the things I love to do the most. But there's a lot of other parts that come with, making a game like this and making a company thrive around a game like this.
Yeah. And I guess what's the process of making a tabletop game kind of, but also what is it? So Ascension was basically probably you. This is you working with Richard Garfield and other people, but like the two big names working together, the collaboration kind of
Yeah,
thing.
Yeah, so first of all, if you want to really understand the process of game design, I teach game design as well. I wrote a
Oh
book
yeah,
called
I
Think
saw
Like a
your
Game
book too.
Designer,
Hmm.
and I have a podcast with the same name, and I interview all the top people in the world. So you want to understand how it was like to work with Richard and the origin
Hmm.
stories there? I have 2 episodes with
Oh
Richard
wow.
Garfield. You can listen to those episodes; they'll tell you all about it. In addition to, I really try to break down this process in step-by-step ways for anybody out there that wants to design games and is excited about it. I when I had to learn to design games, I had no idea what I was doing, right? I mean, I came in as a Magic Pro player, so I knew how to play games, but playing games and designing games are totally different skills. And
Yeah.
so once I
Hmm.
started, I had to just struggle and learn. And so I read books, I talked to experts, I tried to figure it out, and eventually I realized there's not like a magic secret sauce. There's no thing that like creative people have that you don't. I never thought of myself as a creative person. There's a step-by-step process, what I call the core design loop, which is how you go and refine ideas and turn them into actionable, great fun games. And it's a process of iterating and testing things and having things that don't work. And so I break it down in detail for those that are interested. I really wanted to make the next generation of designers path a little bit easier than mine was. And so, when you're collaborating with people, there's a different, some differences in the process and how you brainstorm and how you work with people. And each relationship is different, right? Working with Richard's amazing. He's
Hmm.
very, obviously very smart, very high level. We're able to kind of move past a lot of things. And of course, we have differences too in how we prioritize stuff, and we sort of work through that. When you're working with a partner, it's really important to get past positions and move towards principles, right? So what I mean by that is instead of having a like, oh well, I think this card should say this, and I think this card should say that. Well, okay, that's not what's important. Why do you think this card should say that? Okay, well, I think it's really too confusing, and I want to make sure players understand what's happening here. Okay, well, simplicity makes sense. Well, I want players to have excitement around the possibility of something happening in the game where they could have really big high moments. Okay, got it. Now maybe we can come together and say, okay, it's not this position or this position, but maybe there is a simple and exciting version of this that we can collaborate on to make that third version that we're both going to be happy with, right? And being able to find those win-win situations by stepping back from your positions, not trying to be right, but trying to learn and trying to get to the same end result. That's the most important thing when you're collaborating, is to be able to approach it with that attitude. And I try to cultivate that with everybody on our team.
Yeah. Yes. What's it like if I bet there's a lot of ideas that maybe you or him or someone on the team had loved, and then it's like we have to scrap it at some point. What's that like when you have to get rid of something that you love, but then you're like, no, it's for the greater good
Yes,
of the game, I guess.
yeah, man. I call it killing your babies. I feel
Yeah.
like it does feel like that. And it's another principle I talk about. You have to be willing to do this. So the key here is everything that your game typically has a single core, what I call the core tension. It's a thing that is the central frustration point around your players, where the
Mhm.
exciting and frustrating things all happen, and you need to know what that is. So, for example, for Ascension, the center row and the variability of the center row is the core tension of the game, right? There's only 6 cards available, and I have to decide which card I want and try to rig out which card you want and potentially block the ones that you want and manage the ones that I want. And that tension is the center of it. And I've done 16 expansions, and every single mechanic I ever do increases that tension or creates a counter tension that plays against it. And those things are at the heart of it. If you do something that takes away from the core tension, you have to cut it. And no matter how cool it is, it's got to go. Right. In SolForge Fusion, I talked to you about the leveling system. The leveling system is the core tension of SolForge
Mhm.
Fusion. So all the different cool things about algorithmic generation and different upgrades, different things all build around that same core tension. How do I make that choice of which card do I want to play now? Maybe a card's really good now, but it doesn't level the same way I want. Maybe my opponent leveled a card that's going to make something dangerous later. I want to be counteracting, right? Everything goes around that core tension. So when you have to cut things, even if they're really amazing, they're great mechanics, they're exciting, they take away from the core tension, you've got to cut them out of your game. One of the tips I give people to help with that process to make it less painful is it's not necessarily killing it and destroying it forever. It's just saying, it's not saying no, it's saying not now.
Yeah,
Right.
you
So I
could
have a
save it for
very long
later.
list. Exactly. I have a very long list of core game mechanics and ideas that I keep to the side where that didn't
Mhm.
quite work. For example, I have another game called Shards of Infinity, which is another deck building game, and it uses something I really wanted to put into Ascension, which is what I call what called the mastery mechanic, where your player level, you can kind of basically spend some resources to increase your player level over the course of the game, and all of your cards get more powerful the more that it happens, the more the higher level is, including even one of your starting cards. That when you get to mastery level 30, which is the highest level, your starting card, the Infinity Shard, starts by doing 2 damage when you play it, But if you get to level 30 and play it, it does infinite damage and wins you the game
Oh
immediately,
wow.
right? And there's this core thing which would have been too much to take away from Ascension, but because I cut that mechanic and set it aside, I was able to build an entirely new game around it, which is super fun. We have the Saga edition for that that's going to be coming out this summer, which is kind of the complete total collection of things. It's a super fast, fun, aggressive game where you're attacking other players and using shields, and it's like a really, really fun game. That's a different feeling than Ascension, even though it's also a deck building game. So whenever you have great ideas that don't fit with the core attention of your current game, write them down, set them aside. But you gotta be pretty ruthless about taking them out to make the core experience what it needs to be.
Mm-hmm. The one thing that I really like about SolForge is that it's since it's all unique, I don't have to spend a bunch of money on like trying to get certain like I'm really into me and my friends are into Lorcana now, the Disney game, and we just got started trying out Star Wars Unlimited. But the trading
Yes,
card games are always like, oh, I need more cards, and then you see them at Target or something, you're like, I gotta buy it because I need more. I'm looking for things all the time. But I like that I don't have to
yeah,
like I could just buy this starter kit, maybe another booster box or two, and then I have enough combinations to play with. And then when new
that's right.
things come out, buy another booster box maybe or two.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't want to have that same experience where people are just chasing after the same rare
Hmm.
cards and copying the same decks. Right. Again, I was a pro Magic player.
Yeah.
I understand exactly what this is like. Right. There, eventually, everybody just coalesces around best case scenario, 5 different decks. Oftentimes, it's just one or two different decks. People chase those rare cards. The prices go up, and you end up not only do you end up just spending a ton of money trying to be competitive, but it also becomes very the samey, right? You just kind of
Hmm.
everybody's playing the same decks. It's not even fun. In SolForge Fusion, that's not even possible, right? Everybody has their own decks, and it's about the fun of finding cool pairs and cool combinations and shuffling them together. So you can, as you said, buy one starter or just buy the early access game. You're going to get like 10 different decks or something if you unlock all of them for free. Then tons of different combinations. You don't have to spend another dollar. But if you want to, because it's more fun and you want to try some new experiences and try new combos, because every time you go through the game and even in the campaign, different powers unlock, different XP tracks unlock. There's all kinds of cool things. So we make it you buy because it's fun, not because you feel like you have to. And I think
Yeah.
that's a much better model for the players over the long term.
Hmm. Yeah, because I've gone to the Lorcana nights at my local shop, and I haven't done the Star Wars one yet, but it's like usually people are playing the same decks, and I'm trying to, I guess, especially for Lorcana, since I'm a big Disney fan, I'm trying to build like, oh, I like these characters. Let me put them together and see what happens. And then my deck is always a failure because I'm not really good at building them.
Yeah.
But I like it looks cool, or I might go for a cool mechanic that I might get to play or not.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this one, it's one of the things that was we spent a lot of time on is the algorithm that builds the SolForge Fusion decks. We wanted to make sure that every
Yeah,
deck you get
it
like makes
works.
sense and is reasonably playable and works, right? So you're never going to find like a zombie lord without a zombie in the deck, for example, right?
Hmm.
So they all designed to have some synergies and to make sense. And so, but you could still, because you can shuffle them together and pick which Forge one you want, you still get the opportunity to customize to say, oh, maybe I'll find the perfect pair for this deck. And it creates a lot of fun. You know, a certain deck maybe has more spell synergies, and a certain deck will have synergies with dinosaurs, and there's lots of fun different ways that you could build your deck. So it's you get a sense of ownership, even though if you just shuffle any two random decks together, the game will work, and you'll have plenty of fun options to play with.
Yeah. Is there, I guess, a lot of differences in how Keyforge decks would put just the cards from the same house together to this,
Yeah,
or
so this is a difference, one of those differences in philosophy between Richard and I. So Richard was very much a believer that like let the algorithm run
just
free,
go
right? Let
crazy?
the craziest things happen. Whatever happens, happens, right? Which is cool. Again, it's cool because you can have more crazy, wild varieties, but it also means you have a lot of just completely unplayable decks in keyboards. Like there are a lot of decks you open up and it's just like it makes no sense. You can't
Hmm.
play, you'll lose every single time you play this deck, right? And that sucks. And there's some decks that are just like way off the charts in power level. And so you know, pushed Richard in the other direction. It's like, look, I do agree we want a lot of variety. I do agree we want a lot of discovery. I do agree we want exciting things. Some decks should be a little bit more powerful. Some decks should be a little less powerful. But you want to keep it within this band so that people feel good about their purchase because they feel good about anybody that buys any starter deck. Or every single starter deck is one of a kind. Nobody's ever going to have the same few decks,
Hmm.
but you're still going to have a great experience out of every deck. Right out of every pack, and I think that was really important. I think it's one of the strengths in SolForge Fusion, and so it's a again, it's a design choice. There's good arguments to go the other way, but I felt strongly I wanted to protect players and make sure that they had a good experience with every single pack they buy.
Hmm. And I guess how is the artwork kind of generated by the algorithm to the card and the text, or is it Like, are
So
things
no, we
mixed
have,
up
I mean,
together?
we have tens of thousands, maybe even 100,000 different pieces of art that we've created. So the
Okay.
algorithm does pair the art obviously to the cards, but the
Yeah.
way it works is we have art that's tied to specific card types, and then there's modifiers that can be applied to those cards. So for example, you might have like a fire breathing dinosaur and an ice yeti.
Hmm.
And then they could be, and so the Yeti has a specific art piece associated with it, and the dinosaur has a specific art piece associated with it. But then you might mix and match. So there might be a fire breathing Yeti and an ice dinosaur, and then they'll have different powers and abilities based on the modifier that gets applied to them. There are some cards that are very like specific, like I mentioned, the Scorchmane Dragon, which is the guy that starts off as a little egg, turns into a whelp, turns into a giant dragon. Or one of my favorites is Krogius, starts off as like this little 1/1 small little critter, then
Hmm.
goes into a cocoon at level 2, just turns into a giant wall cocoon. And then in level 3 turns into this the biggest monster in the game, just 30/30, just beast. And so those are like custom art that we make just for those characters to help tell their story. We played around with the idea of like algorithmically generating art that was like unique to every single permutation using AI and stuff. But honestly, it didn't look good, and we were pretty happy just like using human artists and building the
Yeah.
game out that way. So
But then the art
that's
is kind of mixed, so that's why there's no like it'll mix art by different people to make the cards, or
correct. Yeah,
so
I
that's
mean
why there's
we
no
couldn't.
name
Yeah,
on it.
yeah. Exactly. We use the studio. We used a lot of different
Yeah,
artists to build all of that art over time. But yeah, all humans.
that's cool. Um, I guess I wanted to ask you a bit before we go about yourself more in your life, but mostly like your gaming kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, so I kind of told a little bit of the story. So when I was 17, I won the U.S. National Magic the Gathering Championships. I was the youngest
Wow.
U.S. national champion at the time. Started down that career traveling around the world, going to tournaments in Rome and Tokyo. That's how I paid my way through college. Was playing Magic. Won the World Championships, the World Team Championships, and really enjoyed that experience. Got to make a ton of friends and a ton of memories. Then I went to law school at NYU Law, which
Oh
I
wow.
was went because my parents were lawyers and that's kind
Hmm.
of what I was supposed to do. And I was miserable.
Hmm.
Honestly, I really ended up, uh, you know, overweight and out of shape and throw my back out from reading one day and just like miserable. And then finally I got out of that. Fortunately, had an opportunity to do internship designing games at this company called Upper Deck. I worked on
Hmm.
the Versus System, Marvel and DC trading card game, worked on the World of Warcraft trading card game, led design the World of Warcraft miniatures game. Eventually, I decided I wanted to start out on my own. So I quit there, started Stoneblade Entertainment. At the time, it was called Gary Games.
Hmm.
Launched Ascension about a year and a half later. Took off, obviously, and it was a huge success. So then I started creating other games. I've worked with other brands around the world, like created the Bakugan game with Spin Master. I also have done, and now I wrote the book on game design. I teach entrepreneurship and creativity, and work on aspects of how to ideate and brainstorm better with the Wharton School of Business, and do consulting for companies, and have done workshops for Google and Twitter and Zillow and other companies. And then, obviously, if my passion is still just tabletop gaming and bringing the best of tabletop gaming to the digital world, which is what we've done with SolForge Fusion.
Hmm. And are you into video games too, or is it mostly tabletop?
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, I'm obsessed with video games too, man. I love, again, like I love, things like Slay the Spire. I got hooked on
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3 recently. I've
Mhm.
been playing a lot of I'm really obsessed with the roguelike genre in
I love the
general, and things
roguelike.
like,
Yeah.
Vampire Survivors and all kinds of
Mhm.
stuff. So I've just played tons and tons of hours of that. And that's part of why we brought that into SolForge Fusion. I think there's just like so much fun opportunity to expand there and grow. So being able to bring something new to the table by combining the genres of TCGs and roguelikes and using this algorithmic technology, I think we're really evolving the design genre and have something new to say here.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very cool that you're educating like other people that want to do this, and because there's probably classes by now, but for a while there was probably no classes. People just kind of jump into this and learn on their own.
Yeah, no, I do, once a year I do a Think Like Game Designer masterclass. It's like an intensive 12-week program where I work with people and get their projects from start to finish. And we do live pitches to real publishers.
Well,
And that's really, really fun. It's an intense process, so I can only do it once a year because I have a lot of
hmm.
other things on my plate. But I like to give away as much information for free as I can. I have a Substack. If you just go to justingarydesigns.com, it'll take you right to the Substack where I do articles every other week. And my podcast, as I mentioned, like I just try to
Hmm.
put as much free content out there as I can to help people that want to get started because I know how hard it is. I've been through it myself. So I want to encourage anybody out there that wants to live a creative life. Like I said, I went down that law school path because it's
Yeah.
whatever it is that people doing, what society tells you should do, what you think you're supposed to do, what your parents tell you, that's a trap, man. If you're happy doing it, great, God bless. But if you feel called to do something creative, you're passionate about games, I strongly encourage people to take the steps to do it because it is the best decision I ever made in my life to be able to live a creatively fulfilling life. And again, there's challenges that come with it. As I said, it's hard work. I don't want to undersell it,
Mhm.
but doing something you're passionate about makes the hard work a lot easier. And at the end of the day, you can be really proud of what you've done with your career and your life, and hopefully connecting people and making them happy, which is what my job is.
Yeah. No, I studied accounting and finance, but at the end I did like a short creative writing minor. But now it's like I still do accounting, but it's this and improv and the stuff I do on the side that like is what I love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man.
And are you still playing Magic or not as much?
Not like I used
Not
to, man. It's
competitive, but
hard. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard because I gotta, yeah, when you play at that level, it's work. I mean, it's a job. Like you got to
yeah.
spend a lot of hours playing and refining and learning the new cards and getting practice. And once you stop, like I'm so much worse at Magic than I used to be, right? So I'll still play every now and then. I'll still review the cards. I played an event like last month or February, I guess it was, and that was fun. But it's very, it's more a couple times a year than it was like every day, which is what it used to be. So
Hmm. No, I did my first draft the other day with some friends, which was cool. And we did it with the Lord of the Rings cards.
oh yeah, that's really
That was a
fun. I
lot of
played
fun
that.
because I've been trying to learn how to build decks and in just any game, like look for mechanics that work together and stuff instead of looking online for like what are people doing. But thanks so much,
Awesome.
and I'm excited to play more of the game digitally and with friends too and see more.
Yeah. Thank you. It was really fun talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for
Have a great
doing
one.
this. Bye.
Yep. All right. Bye.